welcome back to Coffee Nick's Movie Picks, a freshly brewed coffee and movie review podcast for you. My name is Nick Delaney, and I'm your show host, reviewer, local barista, and the guy who is audibly sobbing behind you during your showing of The Iron Claw. If your coffee has you running to the bathroom, you're in luck, because in today's episode, we're taking it to the Tokyo toilet by reviewing Perfect Days, directed by Wim Wenders. While appreciating the beautifully attended to and designed restrooms of downtown Tokyo, Japan, take a sip of an iced Hedgehog latte from your to-go cup. A to-go cup which, in fact, features rounded edges to simulate a coffee mug. Or perhaps a stemless wine glass with coffee in it. Whatever container it's in, it's this week's coffee review. Please take a seat, stay a while, and let's talk My Eyes See Oppenheimer over some coffee. What happened? But first, as always, you know what I'm about to say. Please make sure to follow at Coffee Nick's Movie Picks on Instagram and TikTok, and at Coffee Nick Pick on X. I don't post on TikTok or X, but you should still follow me there. Yeah. There you can find show updates like new releases, movie discussions, coffee pictures, and much, much more. Again, that's at Coffee Nick's Movie Picks. Go do it, please. First off, I just want to say that I hope you all have been doing well. I have been greatly enjoying the springtime weather in my part of the country. I hope you guys are enjoying some springtime weather too. But most importantly, spring means it is officially the end of our award season. So I want to know what you guys think. Were you happy about this award season? What do you think should have been better? Personally, I'm so pleased to see that Poor Things won as much as it did. I was really thinking it would just be like Oppenheimer, just across the board, every category, every award show. But Poor Things really stood its ground, and I'm happy to see that. And we're going to talk about Barbie in a few minutes here. We'll get to that. In other news, I finished watching Twin Peaks, the original 2 seasons. And that show shook me to my core. After finishing, I was just hungry for more content, so I also watched Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me. That also shook me to my core. And I've been obsessed with Twin Peaks. I've been on a Twin Peaks kick, watching like every video on YouTube about Twin Peaks. But I'm waiting some time to watch the 3rd season because, I don't know, there was such a huge gap between season 2 and season 3. And I'm obviously not going to wait 25 years for, to watch the 3rd season, but I do want to just take in everything I watched, especially since it was just so crazy. I want to process my feelings, but there will be an episode in the future about Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me because just spontaneously I searched up has Fire Walk with Me ever shown in local theaters before? And then it popped up and said, oh yeah, there's a showing in April. Not only that, there's a showing in April with a live Q&A with Cheryl Lee, who plays Laura Palmer. Yeah, so you know what I did? I bought tickets to that immediately. So not only will I be seeing Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me in theaters, but I'll also be talking about the Q&A with Cheryl Lee that will be happening at my theater. And if you're wondering how this is happening, it's Alamo Drafthouse. There are a few Alamo Drafthouse locations in Northern Virginia, and they do this quite frequently from what I've seen. They have live Q&As with actors and whoever from different movies. And I always thought that this was just they called in the actor with the Zoom call or something, but no, the Cheryl Lee will be there in person. We will likely be watching the movie with her. That is so cool to me, and I can't wait to talk about that experience. But that's happening next month, so that episode will probably be out mid-April. I hope you all are excited for that. If you haven't seen Twin Peaks, I cannot recommend it enough. It is very surreal. It's very weird at times, but someone has told me, don't attempt to understand it, just feel it. And that was very helpful watching it. So please watch it. It's on Paramount Plus, and the movie Fire Walk with Me is on HBO Max. And yes, you have to watch the movie after the first two seasons. Enough of that. That wasn't even the coffee thought. Enough. We need to focus here. Now brewing is an iced hedgehog latte from Busy Nothing's Coffee Company in Newport News, Virginia. Now, Busy Nothing's, I'm going to talk about Busy Nothing's first. Busy Nothing's, I have been dying to try their coffee since they first opened, I believe in 2022. But every time I was in the area, I just barely missed them. I think they close at 4 most days, and then they're closed on Sundays. And every time I'm visiting Newport News, I'm like getting there kind of later on Saturday. And then Sunday, it's like, okay, let's go out for coffee and everything. And Busy Nothings is always closed, and it breaks my heart. But this past time that I went to Newport News, I was actually going down to the area to see Reese to watch Dune 2, which you should listen to the bonus episode if you haven't already. It's a lot of fun. But I was going down on a Friday and then staying until Saturday. So, I could have just gone on Saturday and planned that, but I was like, no, I'm locked in. I need to try Busy Nothings today. This was on Friday. And I left my house. I put Busy Nothings into the GPS, and I was just getting there at 3:45, and they close at 4. I was so stressed the whole drive down. It's like 2.5 hours for me. And I was in like horrible traffic and everything. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to make it. I was so upset and I felt so defeated. And, any rational person would have just said, oh, that's okay. I'll just try it tomorrow. No, I would not accept that. I was trying it today. If I had to bust their door down, I would never do that. Side note. I ended up getting there at 3:55. And normally I do not encourage going, 5 or even 10 minutes within closing to any food service establishment. But in this instance, I felt I had to, and I felt I earned it. And I don't know, I just had to. But I was very pleased to find that the baristas were super welcoming and understanding of me, like wanting to take a minute or two to peruse the options. And I felt bad for taking so long because I was so overwhelmed with all these delicious things that I saw on the menu. I ended up just asking for a recommendation, and the barista suggested the Hedgehog Latte. To me, the Hedgehog Latte is a very overused and sometimes, most times, overhyped coffee house staple. And usually I lean towards something unique that the coffee house offers, but I'm also glad I went with this recommendation. I don't exactly know what, but Busy Nothing's Coffee Company puts something different into their coffee. Since I can't quite name it, I will just credit it to the care that they put into their coffee. I've seen their pictures, they make all their drinks look very beautiful and very eye appealing. Also, I love their little mission of caffeinate, educate, and innovate. I think that's really cool and really cute because I think what scares a lot of people away from coffee is, they don't understand it. They don't know what all these different drinks mean. And to that, I say coffee is sort of like movies. You don't have to understand everything about it to enjoy it. Just talk about like the way it makes you feel and like, what's in front of you. What do you taste? Or like in a movie, what do you see that you like? Wow, this podcast is coming full circle, isn't it? That's crazy. So coffee, in a way, I would call it an art form. It's subjective. You don't have to understand everything about it. What do you like about it? What do you not like about it? How does it make you feel? I recommend definitely following Busy Nothings on Instagram. They're at Busy Nothings Coffee. They post a lot of fun stuff, and the owner just seems like such a fun person to be around. And I would love to make coffee with her. I mean, she doesn't know me. I don't know her, but I don't know. She does like these little videos that always make me happy. So follow them on Instagram if you want some like more coffee on your page and some fun little things. Now, on to the drink itself. Yeah, I haven't even started reviewing the coffee. We're going to be here a while today. So, a hedgehog latte is hazelnut and mocha, but I also think that like caramel is welcome in that flavor profile. And I think there might have been caramel in this. I'm not sure. but I loved the espresso in this drink. I don't necessarily know what espresso they used. I know that they use Canvas coffee roasters for some drinks, but it was so rich and creamy, but not heavy. This drink was surprisingly refreshing, and after like a really long drive, it it just hit the spot. There was the perfect amount of sweetness. I really don't like my coffee way too sweet, and that's why I'm always worried about the Hedgehog latte, but it was the perfect amount. And like I said, I just think they made it with such care and attention, and everything was just right. So right away, I give the Hedgehog latte from Busy Nothing's Coffee Company the Nick pick. I'm not finished yet. I'm not finished. So, like I said, I got there right at 3:55, and I even took a few minutes to look at the menu. So, by the time I actually placed an order, I think it was 3:57. The barista, she told me, she was like, "Hey, we're closing in a few minutes. Is it okay if I just make this in a to-go cup for you?" And I was like, "Of course." And I love the way she said that. That was so polite. Props to that barista. But I am so great. Whoever she is out there, I'm so grateful that she did this for me, because their to go cups, the Busy Nothings Coffee Company to go cups, are unlike anything that I've ever seen in all my days of drinking coffee. This is not a video podcast, so I can't show you what the to go cup looks like, but I'll post a picture on Instagram when I post about this episode. This to go cup, it's almost, it is plastic. I don't know if it's compostable or not, but it's almost like a coffee mug shape without the handle. And I'm holding it right here in my hands. It's a very short to go cup, but it's wide and it's a coffee mug shape. So it's rounded edges at the bottom. This is what I drink coffee for. This is it, it all comes back to this. This is such a nice to go cup. And it's not even just, clear, boring to go cup. They put their logo on here. It says Busy Nothings Coffee Company, and yep, established 2022. And their logo is so elegant and it fits like their aesthetic so well. But this is just a joyful little to go cup. It's round, it fits perfectly in my hand. It's almost like a stemless wine glass, but more mug shaped. And it makes me feel, special. So thank you, Busy Nothings. I don't know who made this decision, but it makes me wish that all coffee to go cups were like this. So to every other coffee company, coffee vendor in the Americas, do better. Because I see this, and everyone could be stepping up their game from now on. Now, the one thing about it, since I was taking this to go, I went back to my car after taking a few pictures with it. Yes, I do that. I do coffee reviewing. Of course I take pictures. Yeah. Yeah. Um I'm not ashamed about it either. I'm not. And I won't let people make me feel ashamed about it. So I took pictures and I went back to my car. And I will say, it's a fat cup. It's not tall and thin. It's short and fat. And that's what I love most about it. But it doesn't fit into any cup holders because it is that shape. And that's fine. That's fine. I will. So when you're driving, you have to be holding it in your hands the whole time. And maybe that's not safe, but maybe I don't care. Have you considered that? I I'm holding it. I'm going to be doing that anyways with any different shape cup. I'm going to be holding it and drinking it in zero point 0.5 seconds immediately. And that's what I did with this. So it really didn't matter. But it does not fit into a cup holder if you're one of those people that takes like 4 hours to drink your coffee and then you're sitting in like biology class and you just have like that kind of like watered down milky ice sitting there and you don't throw the cup away. First of all, why? What was I saying? Oh, second of all, this cup might be a problem for you because you can't store it in typical cup holders. But yeah, I don't care that it didn't fit into cup holders because I just like it that much. So overall, Busy Nothings Coffee Company, Yeah, the Nick pick to your Hedgehog latte. The to go cup gets a highly marked Nick pick. Now, this past Sunday night, we had the 2024 Oscars, and that's today's coffee thought. There's a lot to talk about here, and I actually, this is crazy, but this is the first Oscars I watched live. The past two Oscars I followed live, like I would check on Twitter or Instagram, like as the event was happening to see who won. But my family, we don't have like live TV or cable. We just use streaming services to watch whatever we want to watch. But this year, especially since I have, a movie reviewing podcast now, I was like, I have to watch this live. Like that's a must for me. So luckily, YouTube TV was offering free trials, and I got to watch it live this year. So that was a great experience. I'm very happy I did that, and I'll get to that in a moment. But first, I wanted to talk a bit about the nominations. Right away, I would like to mention that everything Greta Gerwig related or Barbie related, I'm saving for the end of this discussion. So, yeah, stay tuned for that. First of all, I was really hoping to see Greta Lee make it to Best Actress. And I was doing that sort of like retrospectively because I watched Past Lives after the nominations came out. But after watching Past Lives, I was like, yeah, she absolutely deserved to make it into Best Actress. And it's kind of crazy that she didn't. I can't say like, this other actress didn't deserve to make it because I think I didn't see one of the movies, Naiad. I didn't see one of those. And I think I'm a firm believer that everyone in a category typically deserves the nomination. These are people at the top of their game, really putting a lot of work in. So who am I to say that this person and that person doesn't deserve to be in their category? I'm not in a category. I'm not in any category, let alone have an Oscar. But I was really hoping to see Greta Lee make it into Best Actress. I was really hoping for a lot more, or really any recognition of All of Us Strangers. That was probably my second most favorite movie of last year and easily has been inducted into my favorite movies of all time. Um, All of Us Strangers absolutely deserves a nomination for, at the very least, Best Adapted Screenplay. I think it even deserves to win that, actually. And I think it even deserves a nomination for Best Cinematography because if you've seen it, it's truly impressive. I really wanted All of Us Strangers to get uh, any recognition this award season, but it was almost like it never happened, which is crazy to me. I would have really liked to see Priscilla get some recognition for Best Adapted Screenplay. I think that would have been great. And I think it absolutely deserved that. And I would have been happy with a win for Priscilla if it got nominated. After watching Priscilla, I even read Elvis and Me, and Sofia Coppola did a stellar job of adapting that story to the screen. And she changed a few things, even like the ending of the book was very different from the movie. And I think every change that Sophia made was perfect. And it adapted the story to the screen setting so well. If you haven't seen Priscilla, please go watch it. If you haven't read Elvis and Me, please go read that. I promise it's worth it. What else? I'm very disappointed, actually extremely disappointed that Olivia Rodrigo did not get nominated for Can't Catch Me Now from A Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, especially seeing the other nominees in that category. And this is the only category where I'll say some of them did not deserve it because I believe that even, not being super qualified and talking about music, I would say that some of the nominees for Best Original Song do not deserve it. And Can't Catch Me Now is one of those original songs that really embodies the source material so well. And I don't know. I want to see Olivia get more recognition. Now, this year particularly of film also made me wonder, should there be a genre for concert films? And this isn't, directly commenting on the 2024 Oscars, but we had some pretty groundbreaking concert films this year. I think, if there was a category for that, Beyonce deserved some recognition for the Renaissance film. If there shouldn't be a category for concert films, I think that Beyonce deserves some recognition for Best Documentary. And that might be a hot take, but it is what it is. I do understand though, there's already so many different categories. But it always seems like there's never really enough to cover the variety of films that we see every year. Because it's like, Renaissance by Beyonce. I think that is an Oscar worthy movie. So where are we going to put that? Or I don't know, is it impossible for that to get nominated at the Oscars? Are there like some guidelines or something? I don't know, but I would consider that a documentary movie. Moving on, this year's Oscars was an incredibly rare occasion where I agreed with pretty much every decision that was made. And I'll talk about the few exceptions later, but first and foremost, I am extremely happy and proud of Da'Vine Joy Randolph for her win. I thought that her speech was incredibly moving and emotional, and her performance was so deserving of that award. So applause for Da'Vine. I'm also very pleasantly surprised to see that Zone of Interest won quite a bit. I saw Zone of Interest, a few days ago, honestly, and I was just blown away by that. And I would talk about that movie on here, but I don't know if I can. It's such a heavy movie. And I can't recommend everyone to see it enough. Zone of Interest is absolutely a nitpick. The Boy and the Heron won animated film, and I'm very happy about that. And Wes Anderson won his first Oscar, which I'm very happy to see that as well. Now, the Best Actress category, that was very up in the air this year. We had so many outstanding nominees in Best Actress. We had Lily Gladstone from Killers of the Flower Moon. We had Sandra Hüller. We had Emma Stone, Carey Mulligan for Maestro, and Annette Bening for Nyad. Going into this, it was really between Emma Stone, Lily Gladstone, and Sandra Hüller for me. And I would have been really happy to see either Emma Stone or Lily Gladstone win. They were both extremely deserving of this award, as all the nominees were. But I am so, so happy for Emma Stone. I wish there was a way that both her and Lily Gladstone could have won, but Bella Baxter in Poor Things was and is a once of a lifetime character. Ah, this is just a can of worms, I think. It's a once in a lifetime character, and her speech, her acceptance speech was so beautiful, and I love Emma Stone. I have such like a parasocial relationship with her. Like, I don't know, in my mind, she's like my best friend. I sound like a crazy person, but she just seems like a lot of fun to hang around. And she was recently on the A24 podcast with Julio Torres, promoting Problemista, which is one of my most anticipated films this year. And she's just so personable and so funny and so down to earth. And she takes such an interest in others. So it was just so great seeing her win this Oscar, and her speech was so moving. I think that all the awards that Oppenheimer received were very well deserving, of course. I do want to talk about Al Pacino revealing Oppenheimer winning Best Picture. I understand if Al Pacino didn't say the nominees, I feel like that was because the producers told him not to cut down on time, but it felt very clunky and very abrupt. He revealed it in a way where he said, "My eyes see Oppenheimer." He almost asked it like a question, like that's what he wanted to see, but what was it going to be? And then everybody caught on like, "Oh, Oppenheimer won," because he didn't say, "Oh, and it is Oppenheimer." But everyone caught on like, "Oh, Oppenheimer won." The crowd went crazy, people were cheering and everything, and he was like shocked. He was like, "Oh, what happened? What happened?" It I don't. It was just funny. That's all I could say. It was funny. Al Pacino, please never change. Speaking of Oppenheimer, one of the very few categories I did not completely agree with was Best Supporting Actor, with Robert Downey Jr. winning. I think that, of course, Robert Downey Jr. is very deserving of this award, but it feels almost like the award was given to his career rather than his performance in the film itself, if that makes sense. And that's fine with me, but compared to the other nominees of that category, I actually don't feel that Robert Downey Jr.'s character and performance really live up to the energy of the other nominees. And that's no disrespect for him. He is amazing in Oppenheimer, but his character wasn't exactly as prominent in that film. And I think it's interesting how happy people are with this award when, it feels like very much a career win rather than a performance win. But last year, when Jamie Lee Curtis won Best Supporting Actress, people were mad. And that to me was the same instance. It felt like a career win rather than like her specific performance win. So it's interesting that it feels different now. But that's just what I observed and how I felt from his performance. It didn't move me in the same way that other performances in that category did. I would have loved to see Ryan Gosling win this category personally. Ryan Gosling gave us something with this performance. He gave us like this sharp commentary about masculinity, patriarchal masculinity. And his acting was, there was so much range to it. There was, really emotional parts, but there was also, of course, like really comedic parts. And I don't know. I just feel like this was Ryan Gosling's moment. And that leads me perfectly into the Greta and Barbie of it all. I am not going to beat a dead horse, surprisingly enough. Yes, Greta should have been nominated. Yes, Margot should have been nominated. And personally, I think that Barbie was a little bit more deserving of Best Soundtrack over Oppenheimer. And it could be argued Best Set Design over Poor Things too. But there is so much more wrong about this than people are talking about. And that's the fact that not only did they not give Greta a nomination, and not only did they not give Margot a nomination, but they marketed the fact that they did that. I don't know if any of you saw like the promos for the Oscars that were going out, but there's one showing, I think it's America Ferrera taking Jimmy Kimmel through Barbie Land on the way to the Oscars. And they have like that sequence where they're like traveling through all these different like sets and everything like they do in the Barbie movie. They get to the Oscars and Ryan Gosling is there and he's like, Greta's got director in the bag. And then America leans over and she's like, oh, well, Greta didn't get nominated. And she like whispers in his ear and he's like, what? And then starts screaming. And it's really funny. I admit it's very funny. But that promo was, of course, made by the Oscars. And it's just crazy to me. Like, I don't know. It just feels disrespectful, honestly. Why are they marketing the fact that Greta didn't get nominated? Maybe it's something about like how the Academy works that I'm not understanding. Like maybe, I don't know, the people voting are the people making different decisions about the advertising, but still there should be some communication between those two functions. Not only this, but the Oscars were just like littered with Barbie stuff. I say littered like it's a bad thing. It was a very Barbie centric Oscars. That's fine, and I actually encourage that because Barbie was one of the best movies of the past year, but it was just like the Barbie theme was playing, like I'm a Barbie girl. Ryan Gosling gave that outstanding performance of I'm Just Ken. It was just like Barbie was the heart and soul of the Oscars this year, and I feel like Barbie was so robbed too by the Oscars. So it just really blows my mind. And I think that, it really speaks to the message of Barbie. Overall, to wrap up this long-winded coffee thought, I agreed with a lot of the Oscar wins, but I had a lot more issues in terms of the nominations. I would love to see the Academy expand their perspective and mindset when it comes to films from different genres, films in different mediums, and films from different places. The latter of which they've been getting better about, but I still think there's a lot more room to grow. What did you think about the Oscars? Do you think there were any nominations that were missing? Did you agree with all of the wins? Were you attracted to seeing John Cena naked? Let me know. You can follow me on Instagram and comment on one of my little posts or DM me or whatever. I'll even post it on my story. Who cares? And for this week's movie review, now showing Perfect Days, directed by Wim Wenders and a nominee for Best International Film at the 2024 Oscars. Perfect Days depicts the everyday life of Hirayama, played by Koji Yakusho. Hirayama takes great satisfaction and pride in his work as a custodian for public restrooms in Tokyo, Japan. Through the routine of his everyday life, Hirayama comes into contact with an ensemble of characters that reveal more about him and his past, but more importantly, reveal the intricacies of life. I want to start by saying that this is a beautiful film. There are so many technical aspects about this film that I fell in love with and that really just captivated me and like pulled me in when I was watching in the theater. The imagery of nature and the city of Tokyo, the use of colors, the dialogue, the cinematography, it's all here and it's all outstanding. Like I said, we see a lot of Tokyo and a lot of Hirayama, the main character, admiring Tokyo and its many different places and residents. Overall, the film feels like a love letter to the city, and I really enjoy media like that. It makes me think of, as you know, my favorite film is Lady Bird, which feels like a love letter to Sacramento. And this kind of like had similar aspects where it just showed like beautiful shots of the city, and it was just so heartwarming. Speaking a bit more about Hirayama, he is an excellent character, and he was excellently performed by Yakusho. Yakusho communicates so much with such subtle facial expressions. He is definitely one of those actors that spends hours in front of a mirror just studying his face and studying the different expressions that he can make. He did his homework and handled this role with such care and respect, so applause to Yakusho. It was just amazing. And talking a bit more about his character, Hirayama is a very contradictory character, but not necessarily in a bad way. He leads a very solitary life. In the film, there's no speaking, actually, for the first 10 minutes or so. The first supporting character that's introduced is a coworker of Hirayama. And this coworker is very immature and thinks very little of the job. And Hirayama does not speak to him, actually. It's like a thing in the film where he just doesn't talk to this coworker. But when Hirayama does speak, and just in general, not just to the coworker, it's because he has something very important to say. This kind of represents a very nuanced character. I feel like when a character sort of has their voice taken away for one reason or another, you right away know that there's a lot of like inner conflict and inner emotions happening here. One other thing about Hirayama, I love that this character had so many hobbies. And I think that films, especially in recent years, have been forgetting to give their characters hobbies. And when I say hobbies, I mean like, a few. And hobbies that like aren't super relevant to the story or the film itself. It's just, hobbies like people have. Because a lot of films, when the character has a hobby, it's like, oh, this character is a painter, rather than, oh, this is a character who paints. Did that make sense? Maybe not. Maybe it did. What I'm saying is, when hobbies are included with the character, that hobby is the character, and that hobby is central to the film somehow. On the other hand, in Perfect Days, the hobbies are sort of secondary to the character and secondary to the plot. I think that these sorts of hobbies, like shown in Perfect Days, are very important because they reveal so much about our character and they tell us so much without like explicitly telling us. So, one of Hirayama's hobbies is gardening, which this tells us that he is very responsible and he's a caretaker. He takes great pride in grooming his plants and taking care of the plants, much like what he does with the restrooms. Another hobby is reading. Hirayama is a very sentimental character. There's this one subplot where he's cleaning a restroom and he finds like someone hid a little tic-tac-toe grid. And he was going to throw it away, and he did throw it away, but he brought it back out and started playing tic-tac-toe with like some random stranger. And when the game ended, he kept the little sheet of paper, which, that tells us he's very sentimental, but the fact that he is a photographer also tells us that. And he takes the same picture on his lunch break every day of like the tree line at the park where he eats his lunch. And he has those photos developed and like picks the really great ones out and picks the ones that like got messed up and he throws them out. And he stores the really good ones in like this really intricate filing system. And, so it's just really communicating this sense of a sentimental person. This character would also have a lot of like small rituals. For example, on his drive to work every day, he would look up at the city skyline. While driving, he would also listen to cassette tapes, all of which were curated to have like a very specific genre. He would go to the same restaurants and bars. He would drink the same coffee. And it was really exciting to see what he did on his days off because a lot of the film it takes place on, when he's working and like cleaning the restrooms and everything. So I feel like his character was pushed forward a lot with the audience when he would have these days off. All of this to say that Hirayama is a character of routine. And what makes this film so special and unique is that it doesn't try to break that routine with exciting or dramatic events, which that's very typical for any film. Usually have this character just kind of like living their life in typical film structure, and the inciting incident breaks that routine and they're thrown into like this series of crazy events and everything. But Perfect Days told its story and its message from within the confines of that routine. There wasn't a day like he called out of work, as far as I know or remember. It introduced new characters like through this routine that he had. And he learned his lessons, like even on days when he had work or on his days off. And this is really how real life works. We go to work every day. We don't stop going to work to learn like a life lesson or to have this crazy thing happen to us. We're still caught up in this routine and living life at the same time. Now, I think that this is an extremely impressive and challenging way to tell a story. Talking more about what we know about the character of Hirayama, we really don't know anything beyond what the film shows us. There's not much that happens off screen, whether it be like in Hirayama's past or just something we're generally not seeing. Instead, a lot is indirectly revealed about Hirayama by the characters surrounding him and how they view life, how they view his career, and what they imply about his past. And I appreciate this. I think that films that are over expository are just very exhausting and generally not good. But I didn't necessarily enjoy how this film went about it. Nothing is explicitly stated about this character. Everything that we know about his past and things that happen off screen, we sort of have to infer. At one point, Hirayama's niece shows up on his doorstep because she ran away from home after having an argument with her mother, Hirayama's sister. And while you think this might have been the inciting incident of the film, it actually happens in the third act. When I first saw the trailer, I thought that this would be like the main plot point of the film, him reconnecting with his niece and them sharing some sort of connection with each other. I think that Hirayama's niece showing up on his doorstep and them spending time together was definitely the highlight of the film, but I think it was also the biggest missed opportunity for the film as well. We eventually meet the sister, or the niece's mom, who we find out that Hirayama does not speak to, and not in the way he doesn't speak to his coworker. He definitely has a negative history with the sister. So she comes and picks up her daughter, and when she does arrive, it's at nighttime, and she comes in a really nice car and even has a personal driver. I don't know if it was an Uber driver or something, but it definitely looked like she had like a chauffeur. So it's kind of painting the picture that Hirayama's family is very wealthy. And when she comes to pick up the daughter, she asks Hirayama if he's been in the hospital recently to visit their father. Hirayama says no, so we can infer that Hirayama is somehow disconnected from his father in the same way he's disconnected from his sister. As she's leaving with the niece, she also asks Hirayama if he's really cleaning toilets for a living. And the tone she uses, it implies that she can't believe that he's actually doing that. There's this sense of disbelief that that's his career right now. But there's also this sense of embarrassment for her brother that he's cleaning toilets for a living. So we can also infer from this that Hirayama also, like the niece, got into some big argument with the family and decided to separate himself from them. So he's not speaking to his father, he's not speaking to his sister. And when he separated from them, he also cut off their wealth that it's implied that they have. And, we can imagine what this character goes on to do. He's, living this solitary life and he doesn't have this wealth he was once connected to anymore, but he finds a new sense of purpose and happiness in what he does now as a custodian for these public restrooms. And I think that's a really beautiful character arc and a really beautiful message as well. But those are all things happening off screen that we have to infer. So, how can we know if any of that is the truth? And when it comes to film, I think it's a lot more interesting to draw conclusions based on like more abstract themes than basically just events that have happened in the main character's life. Those are the type of things that I don't as much mind the film just outright stating. But as someone who has worked in the service industry for all these years now, I know what it's like to feel belittled because of the work that I do and, have people treat that work like it's not valid because, I'm not working in an office for, an admin job, but it's not full time. My job isn't exclusively cleaning toilets, so I can't really, speak to what that's like. But in the film, we see that it does give Hirayama like a great sense of joy and purpose. And so when his sister comes in and belittles him for having that job in a way, it really gives the audience a sense of perspective on, what it's like to work in the service industry and have people think so little of you just because of the work that you do. But I appreciate that this film respects Hirayama as a character and respects his career, and they handled it very well. I just wish they delved into this theme a little bit more. Every message and theme that this film had, it just touched on it, and it didn't really get in depth with it. And there were a lot of messages here that were really great and very unique, and I wanted to see more of. But like I said, nothing here was really dissected very well. The message, with Hirayama and his sister in their brief conversation, it reminded me of Triangle of Sadness a bit. But I think Triangle of Sadness really dissected and pulled apart that message a lot better than Perfect Days did. Triangle of Sadness is not a perfect movie, but it communicated that message very well and very thoroughly. This film did not, and that's where most of my problems were with the film. I talked a lot in depth about the great things about this film, but in the end, you never really know for certain what is going on with this character, and that's fine, but it's forfeiting having really good and impactful moments, which was very disappointing for me. I was left sort of unsatisfied with this movie because it started so many good things and it had a lot going for it. These visuals, the character, the performance, but I just feel like it never really followed through with anything. Like there was never that payoff moment. But I'd be interested to hear what other people think. And, I don't really know a lot of people that have seen this movie yet. So maybe there's like a really strong moment that other people are seeing that kind of went over my head. So I would love to know what you think if you saw this movie. And I do recommend you to see it if you have the chance to do so. But overall, I give Perfect Days by Wim Wenders the Nick Mix. Perfect Days tells a story through the routines, interests, and everyday happenings of its central character, an impressive and notable achievement. But it leaves audiences without any clear or impactful ending, which makes it all feel not very worthwhile in the end. If you'd like to see Perfect Days by Wim Wenders, it's still showing in some local theaters, and you can also rent or buy it on Amazon. Now, it's time to read some Dear Coffee Nick letters. In this segment, I read letters from fellow coffee and movie enjoyers about their own coffee and movie opinions, reviews, thoughts, hot takes, or whatever they have to say. And if you want to submit one, it doesn't even have to be about coffee or movies. I know I get super off topic in this podcast, so you can too, and I would be happy to talk about it. If you'd like to submit a Dear Coffee Nick letter, you can write to coffeenicksmoviepics@gmail.com, or you can send me a direct message on Instagram. Our first letter today, and this was sent before the Oscars. Dear Coffee Nick, what are your thoughts on Oppenheimer's wins, and where does it rank in terms of 21st century winners/films in general? And what kind of projects would you like to see next from Nolan? So first off, bold of you to assume that Oppenheimer won anything. Actually, not really, because it really did win quite a bit, didn't it? But I just think it's funny that you like even before the Oscars were like, what are your thoughts on all of Oppenheimer's awards? But that is a very fair prediction that you had. I did talk about this before in my Oscar segment, so I won't get very in depth about all of my thoughts on the Oppenheimer wins, but I think all of them are very much deserved. My only exception to that, and like I said, is Robert Downey Jr. I definitely would have preferred to see Ryan Gosling over him. In terms of Oppenheimer winning Best Picture, this is definitely one of the biggest and most mainstream movies to win that award that I've seen in recent years, aside from maybe Everything Everywhere All at Once. And I mean that in the best way possible. I think that this is a movie that everyone should see. Oppenheimer was such a powerful film to me. I regard Nolan extremely highly. I think that he's established himself as a legendary filmmaker. My first Nolan movies were, of course, the Dark Knight trilogy. Those movies had a huge hand in making me fall in love with Batman. In terms of what I want to see Nolan do next, I would love to see him do horror. He's mentioned that this is something that he wants to do, and I think he even let himself do a bit of it, considering a few of the sequences that he included in Oppenheimer. So I think it's time for him to do it. This next question says, Dear Coffee Nick, generally, do you think live action remakes dilute or enhance their original source material? And my answer to this is it depends. I think that generally they dilute their source material. However, there are a few exceptions to this. I thoroughly enjoyed the live action Cinderella remake and the Little Mermaid live action remake. I thought they were fun and added like new and complex layers to the source material. But again, like, the source materials are still there. They're still great. They hold up. So I think really what these live action remakes are just a cash grab. Besides money, why are they doing it? And I don't think there's any clear answer. It's not branding because, take Disney, for example. In all of their branding of like the Disney princess brand, they still use the animated versions of the princesses. So it doesn't make sense to me why the live action princesses are there if not just for money. So it's just for money. But I am interested to see how relevant the live action princesses are going to be in 20 to 30 years when the children growing up with them today are adults. Are they going to prefer the live action princesses that were being released when they were kids, or do they still prefer the animated ones? Our next letter says, Dear Coffee Nick, A Quiet Place should have been a standalone film. Every movie doesn't need a franchise. 2 explanation points. Hot take, but I agree. I think that Quiet Place Day 1 is forcing the series to start becoming like a franchise. And just based on the trailer alone for Quiet Place Day 1, I think that the mystique of these creatures are being completely taken away. You see them just like running around the city and causing chaos and everything. And I don't know. In the past 2 movies, we saw the creatures in very isolated environments, which made them a lot scarier. If you just throw them into like New York or something and have them running around killing people, this just becomes every other, disaster horror movie. Our next letter, Dear Coffee Nick, do you have any ideas or stories you would like to tell in the medium of film? The answer is I do, but I don't think I have the courage to tell them yet, at least, or really the know how to tell them. I don't even know where to start with my ideas, and it seems like such an impossible and far away thing for me to do that it keeps me from writing literally anything about my ideas, even notes. I just kind of like have like the general like log line or concept sitting in my notes app. And it's just, I don't know where to get started with these things. Like, how do I, you know, make a movie? My first idea, though, the title or the working title for it is called Home for the Holidays. And that's like Howl a Days. And this is a Christmas drama coming of age movie. Basically, the little short summary that I have is this is the story of a college student who recently learned that he has been turned into a werewolf after a foggy and troubling night of drinking. When he returns home for the holidays, he must hide his newfound identity from his werewolf hunting parents. And, if this ever was a movie that you were to be made, it would be very rich with subtext. So definitely read into that summary if, you have ideas of where that could go. I think I also forgot to mention that that movie would be a comedy. So it would not take itself way too seriously, but then it would at some points. But I came up with that idea because I was watching a movie with my dad on Christmas Eve, and he chose some sort of like werewolf man movie, and I was a little upset because I wanted to watch like a Christmas movie. So I was like, what if there was a werewolf Christmas movie? And then it happened. I have a few other strong film ideas, but I don't think I'm ready to share any of those yet. But thanks for that question. I thought that was a really cool question. I definitely want to hear your movie ideas too sometime. And the last question for today. Dear Coffee Nick, what's the first movie you remember seeing in theaters? Mine was The Polar Express from Reese. First of all, hi Reese. Hi. I had a lot of fun on the last episode. Thank you for coming on the podcast again. If you guys want to hear Reese in an episode, the Dune Part 2 episode is featuring him. To answer your question, I've thought about this a lot, and I truly don't remember a lot of things about my childhood, which makes me sad. Like, I only can remember like bits and pieces. But the first movie I distinctly remember seeing in theater was Iron Man, which was in May 2008. And shortly after that, I remember seeing for my 7th birthday, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull in theaters. So I was 7 at the time, so that was pretty early on. Both of these movies are very near and dear to my heart, and I think that's because I saw them in theaters at such a young age. I'll have to ask my parents if they remember what my first movie was, but to be honest, their memory is similar to mine, so I'd be surprised if they knew. Thank you everyone who sent in a letter. If you'd like to send one in, you can direct message the account on Instagram or email coffeenixmoviepics@gmail.com. And that is all I have for today. Thank you all so much for tuning into this episode of Coffee Nick's Movie Picks. If you like what you heard, please be sure to give the show a 5-star rating and subscribe on Apple Podcasts. Follow the show's accounts on social media and share the show with your friends. I had a really great time recording this episode. I think I'm starting to get the hang of what the structure of this show will be like. So thank you all for bearing with me as, I learn more about the show also. Until next time, I'll be ranting about Busy Nothing Coffee's to-go cups. I'll see you then. Thanks again for listening to Coffee Nick's Movie Picks. Our opening theme is Summer Solstice on the June Planet by Bail Bonds. Our closing theme is I Feel It All So Deeply, also by Bail Bonds. Before you go, don't forget to give Coffee Nick's Movie Picks the Nick's Pick by subscribing and rating us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Coffee Nick's Movie Picks on Instagram, X, and TikTok at Coffee Nick's Movie Picks. Again, that's at Coffee Nick's Movie Picks.